Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Wonderful.
Yeah, tip top.
Excellent. Back for another fantabulous recording session.
Yes.
Oh, any news?
My wine glass is empty. That's not good.
That needs to be
Far out.
rectified. Toot sweet,
Immediately.
darling. Toot
That'll-
sweet.
Sweet.
Here we
That'll be
go.
on tonight's
As we speak.
news on Channel 9.
Yep. Right up there with the weather.
And,
Yep.
and every stabbing and murder that's happened across the country, because we like to focus on all the bad stuff. Anyway, it's full now, so don't worry, Tracy Grimshaw or whoever else does the news. Problem
I think
is
Trace
solved.
has resigned, has retired? Resigned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She got the arse.
That was
I think she got
recently.
pushed.
Retired.
Really?
I don't
She was
know.
never going to go on her own, surely.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know anything about her. The only thing I know about her was that little bit of controversy. It was Tracy Grimshaw, wasn't she? Current affair or whatever. Was she the one who Gordon
Been in the role
Ramsay
forever.
called a name?
Oh, yeah, I
know.
think you're right. I think it was while they were away, but yeah, I think
They
he
probably just need someone
was,
hotter
of course,
than
said
her.
something unflattering, yeah.
Well,
the
it
girl
wasn't
was taking her
unflattering.
place.
It was bloody rude. But yeah.
Correct. Well, I was trying, I don't remember what was said, but yeah, I think it was while we were away, but yeah, I have seen that. Apparently, my mum tells me this, and I've got a vague recollection. The girl who is replacing her, who's a Channel 9 star, her mother was one of my school teachers when I was in primary school. And for a period of time, they lived not too far from us. But she had an older brother. Mum always tells me it's 7. I'm always trying to find information about her mother online, but I can't. So I can't qualify whether that's actually a factual statement. But
True or
I
not.
think she was at one point in our
Well,
realm.
The old one degree of separation, eh?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, I must check with my mum. My mum's coming over tomorrow for Christmas, so
So is that your news?
will I be using that as my news? Yeah, I think that's probably about it. That's my big news. Mother is arriving. But yeah, it should be good.
Fair enough.
What about you, Schmitty?
Oh, I've just been working. I'm kind of doing 2 jobs at the moment, and that's been quite full on. So one wasn't just to keep an eye on these things until the new guy starts. It's ended up taking up a lot of time. I'm now also, my boss resigned, so I've been asked to be the interim boss lady, which will take us through to March. So that's exciting. So I suppose there you go. That's my news, just as the lead up as we move into the silly season.
Well, after the silly season, isn't it sort of wedding season as well?
Oh,
So
it
you're going
is.
to be a very busy lady.
Even sillier.
True
season.
that.
Oh, I know. I'm kind of just get through Christmas. You know, I've got these short-term milestones, and that's
Yes,
how
going to
I'm
do week
coping.
by week by week. That sounds like good.
Get
Move
this strategy
house.
written, get this plan
Yeah,
written,
right,
get
yeah.
this bit done, get a story written for tonight. You know, that's it. It's just little chunks of time. That's how I'm coping.
Oh, well done you. If anyone
Right.
can do it, you can do it.
Oh, thanks, Dal. So who are we? I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial
Trial by Wine.
Oh, beautifully
Oh,
done.
that was so civilised.
It was. And what are we drinking, speaking of wine?
Go on, Swanny.
Trial by Diet Soda is a Coke Zero for me.
Just on
I was
money.
sort of alluding, I was just sort of saying to Schmitty and Clarkey that I'm about to host a Dungeons and Dragons get-together for one of my boys. And apparently it's going to get a bit cray, so
Do you
I
think,
need to be the responsible parent.
do you think the latest series of Stranger Things has brought it back into popularity, or is it always just like a little geeky subculture thing that's been going on for 50 years?
I don't really know. I'd have to ask my children, but one in particular who's into it, Raj, he would have an opinion on that, and he's also very much into Stranger Things.
Right.
But I think it would suit who he was as a person. I just think the people that he doesn't do it with kids from his current school, he does it with kids from the first school we came to when we went to Australia. And there are a certain subset of society, I think, that are really into it.
It's
And
smart boys.
he's very much into it, so it suits him.
Does he like Kate Bush as well?
He's certainly aware of the song, at least. That was
There you go.
one of the good
That's
byproducts.
that's it. Yeah, it's brought her back into modern
Yeah.
mindset, which is great because I've always loved Kate.
Yeah, I have too. She's incredible.
So,
a
boys, what are
talent.
you drinking?
Well,
about
I'm not
to
100% sure because Stuart's poured us a glass of smoky Chardonnay and then pulled a face because he doesn't like it. So we discussed maybe having a rosé, but now we're just sitting here with smoky Chardonnay in our glasses, and I don't want to taste it because he said it doesn't smell very nice. So
I'll be
Okay.
back.
who knows? It could
Right.
change.
It'll change.
He's off to the cellar.
Right
It's a
now.
moving feast.
Yeah, no, there it goes. It's about to get tipped down the sink. So let's go with we're having a rosé. I bought some on Black Friday sale and it was 25% off from Yering Station. So
Oh, yeah, that's quite good.
haven't had a taste yet, but I will. And if I pull a face when I have my taste, you know what to think or what.
And
I
I'm just going to correct myself because my ex-boss, I think, sometimes listens to this podcast, and he once had a good crack at me for using the expression incorrectly when I said a moving feast. The correct expression is a movable feast. So apologies for that, and
a
you know who you
movable
are.
feast.
Apparently, that's actually the correct
Oh, I've
expression.
never heard that. I would have always said a moving feast.
Yeah, well, there you go. We're all wrong. Oh,
I think now that you say it, I do know that, but I think I have.
it's a book by Ernest Hemingway as well.
Movable
apparently.
feast. Far out the shit you learn.
No, I think I do a movable feast. Yeah.
A 1964 memoir by American
go.
author Ernest Hemingway.
Ernest Hemingway, yes. And so I am drinking a very small, because I didn't have enough Coca-Cola rum and Coke, the old pirate juice. And I've made it nice and light so that I don't get too piratey on it. But I am also enjoying a movable feast in that I will be going on after that to my friends, the Vodka Cruiser mango chutneys. Because I've got some. That's what I'm
old
doing.
Oh my
faithful.
God. Do you know what a movable feast is?
Is it a feast you have in one place and then go somewhere else and
It's
have it?
like a progressive
Progressive
dinner.
dinner?
A movable feast is an observance in a Christian liturgical calendar which occurs on different dates in different years.
No, I had no idea. But I do know about the utilisation of the term feasts for certain periods in the religious calendar. So yeah, okay, I suppose that makes sense. It's one that changes its dates, I guess. That just turned really not that interesting. All right, so now that we've covered that, shall we get on and tell a story?
I must say, you can't say that this podcast isn't informative. If nothing else, I mean, nobody's heard of a movable feast apart from the Christians of the Middle Ages
And my ex-boss.
and your ex.
And Ernest Hemingway, obviously.
But now 18 people know.
That's right. And that doesn't include us.
That's right.
All right, so whose story is it today?
I've got one,
Lovely.
if I may.
Please, go for
May
it.
you?
And as always, I never quite know where to start. Never quite know, whether I start at the end or start at the beginning or start with the victims or start with the perpetrators. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you where it's set. And as I often do, it's set in the US. This one's set in Miami, Florida. And it's set
Would you like a good Florida story?
We
Oh, I do.
We do like your Amy.
I do. I'm going to tell you my sources, I guess, while I'm at it. And my sources are some I've never used before, so some I don't even really know what they are. One is called Joe Blow Originals, which I think is like an online.
Sounds reputable.
I think I found it on
Sounds like
YouTube. Yeah, I've never come
Not a
across it before.
news website.
One is called HLN. I don't know what that is either. That
Did you
worries
say
me when I
don't
know-
say that?
Don't go there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Not this
HLN, is
early.
that like Helen?
I don't know what it is. And I just looked at it, I don't know what it is. And then I didn't have time to really drill any further. But anyway, HLN, someone must know what it is out there. The next is a book called Pain and Gain by Pete Collins.
Oh, okay.
The next is Murderpedia.
Right.
Yay.
And to Clarky's comment, then there's one called Musclehead Murders, which again gives the whole
Bodybuilder's
thing
gonna get
bodybuilders.
Musclehead Murders. Wow. I would have
Yeah.
thought that's a little bit niche, but maybe not.
And then there's a film, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Swanny, given
yes.
what you've told us so far, can you try to do this whole episode speaking like Sylvester Stallone?
I wouldn't know how to do that, to be honest.
No,
Oh,
it's just like this.
We've got to have a lot of mumbles.
there's an ad on television for a new show that he's in. Is it Tulsa Mafia or Tulsa something?
Yeah, it's a series, I believe.
Yeah, it looks quite interesting. I think it's for the same people as Yellowstone, but I also, is it something recent that I read that I don't think it was something that I was ever aware of. Did he write Rambo or is that what it is? There was something that I just wasn't aware of
There's
at the
something
time.
like that, yeah.
I don't know if it was Rocky. One of those things, it was like, it was his. And I was like, whoa, I just, sometimes I just think, oh, it's just an actor. But I mean that with all respect for people who are actors or actresses.
Who was it that did
Oh,
that
but
joke
I was going to
about-
say, how could you possibly call Sylvester Stallone just an actor?
An actor, exactly.
What else is he?
A mumbly person? I can't understand. And
He's
obviously,
ripped is what he is, which
He's ripped and he
which
writes
leads very
shit.
nicely into the setting of today's story.
Okay.
So the setting of today's story starts in Miami, in a suburb called Miami Lakes, and we're in the mid 1990s. And I read somewhere that it was called the deadliest decade due to roid rage. So
Wow.
I think it was really a period of time where I don't know if it was necessarily at its height, but certainly that hardcore bodybuilding for the sake of looking a certain way was king. I think gym culture there's obviously will still be that gym culture now, but it also has changed. I think in the day, if you went to the gym to bulk up like that, it was a look, right? You're thinking of Gold's Gym and the people in the tank tops and Mr. Universe and I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Correct.
Yeah. There was
So
a Mr.
just-
Universe, I think. Yeah.
Just on that, Stuart and I have just started going to the gym, and I can tell you we are so far removed from that
Oh my God.
roid rage culture.
Exactly. But the
It's
thing is, the
literally,
gym is
what,
different
more
to that now.
sit-ups? I can't do that.
But the gym feels more like that now. Now, I think with, influencers and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and even young people generally, I do think are much more body conscious and in a way that's not pumping roids into themselves, but, actually doing it in a healthy way. This is not about that. That this is about a gym where it was that particular type, which you have in mind, where they are all oiled up, pumped up, little
Who
pinheads
needs to be
on
oiled
big
up
bodies.
to go to the gym?
Do you know what I mean, though?
Yeah,
that look.
I do. That bodybuilding, or body
Bodybuilders gym.
sculpting, I think they call
Not,
it.
it's all about men and, well, actually, that's not fair.
Isn't the
Well, women
oil
are
meant to
as
be
a-
like a sheen of sweat?
That's what you have, yeah.
Yeah.
There's sort of one of the trainers that we use as a family. One of my sons sees him, and my husband has at different times. He has coached people for what are bodybuilding contests now, and particularly women, and it never fails to make me smile when I see a woman who is competing and the colour that they paint them. They are literally, it's a teak, for the want of a better word. Yeah. So the name of the gym is called, or was called, Sun Gym, the Sun Gym. And it was very much, as you would expect, a gym of that era. It was a brick sort of warehouse-looking kind of place in a
Bit grungy.
suburban place. Well, yeah, but also a total scene. It was, for the want of a better word, pumping. It was super popular, very well, subscribed to. And there was a lot going on there. So a lot of people, a lot of, new people, a lot of energy, and, just generally a lot of guys hanging around who are, just trying to up themselves. What's it called? Not up themselves.
One up themselves.
One up themselves.
One up each other.
One
surely.
up
Yeah.
each other.
Oh, if you don't mind.
Oh, God, it doesn't matter what I've said. They've all come out terribly wrong.
Oops,
I'm
a daisy
thinking
up your Khyber.
I'm thinking of one-upmanship, but I'm trying to say something else at the same time. I hate it when my mind does that. Anyway, I think we get the general gist.
I kind of like it when your mind does that.
Yeah.
Puts a smile on my face.
Oh, so of the characters that we're going to meet at the Sun Gym, first of all, there's the manager, and his
Swanny.
name Daniel Lugo. And as I said, it was a bodybuilder hangout, and he had a prior sort of conviction. So in 1991, he'd been arrested and pled guilty to fraud, and he'd served a 15-month sentence in addition to 3-year federal probation period for fraud because he'd been pretending to be part of a Hong Kong bank looking to invest in American small businesses and basically been ripping off old people.
That's not your stereotypical gym crime, is it?
Not really, but you start to get this sort of sense that a couple of people who were at the gym had a little bit of a past, shall we say. They'd all been dabbling a little bit.
I'd
No
be
one was
thinking drugs
terribly
and
interested.
guns and that sort
Yeah.
of stuff, less I'm pretending I'm a bank.
That's right.
I reckon other gyms would have been laughing.
It's
That's
all,
not.
but it's all petty crime, isn't it? Like
Very.
Well, I don't know if petty crime is quite fraud. But anyway,
right.
we'll get there. You
white
still have
collar
time. They're
crime.
not.
You're right. It's
Yeah,
white
well,
collar crime. Yeah,
it's sort of, it's just that.
ripped
You know
white
when we
collar.
talk
It
about
doesn't belong in the gym.
No, it doesn't belong in the gym. No, you're right. It's not typical
Agreed.
to that
Wouldn't
setting.
have put there. But I think as we get sort of further into the story, you do realise that there are just people that are always trying to find a way to make a buck, right? Well, those who've got it and those who haven't and those who think they're entitled to it. Then there's a chap called Noel. His surname bothers me so much just because it's such, you know how some words are just difficult. This is a difficult word for me to say. His surname is Doorbell, B-A-L. And I keep
Not doorbell.
Not doorbell.
Doorbell?
And not
But
dumbbell.
not Doble. No, it's just Noel. Noel, it's because it's Noel as well.
Noel
Doorbell.
Doorbell. There doesn't matter how many
Doorbell.
times I read it, so I cannot remember it. I have to look each time to read it because the Noel combined with the
Doorbell.
doorbell, the letters, how they sit there, I
Yeah.
can't do it. So
I'd
Norbert,
prefer if it was dumbbell, given it's
Dumbbell.
a gym
we
story.
might have to call him
Or even
Dumbbell.
Dingbell.
Dingbell. So Noel Doorbell, I still can't do it. He worked
Noel
part-time
Doorbell.
alongside Lugo.
Yeah.
There was also a gentleman by the name of Carl Weeks, and Carl had moved from New York.
Is that
Down
why
to
he was
Miami.
going to the gym?
Because he's weak.
Because we. He'd moved down to Miami to live with his girlfriend's cousin, who was a gentleman called Stevenson Pierre.
Is there a comma there and they've got his name like an attendance list?
No. Pierre had
It
been
sounds like it
hired.
should be Pierre Stevenson.
No. By Daniel Lugo
No.
in February of 94 to create a collection agency for overdue gym membership payments. When it didn't work, he just remained at the gym as a back office manager
Do
in the
I
weight room.
assume from that they were offering that service to other gyms? Because how many late fees
That's
do
what
you
I
have
was
that you have to
thinking.
have an agency that you set up?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're just trying to make
I
money.
mean, I got an email from my gym that said that my payment didn't go through and can I contact them, which I didn't do because I can't be bothered. But, I don't think someone's going to come and break my knee over it.
Wow.
They just won't let me in if I go again.
Well, we'll wait and see.
They'll drop a ding bell on him when he's there
Yeah,
next.
stay tuned.
And then
Could
there
be a
was
cautionary tale, Clarky.
George Delgado, spelled Jorge, George.
Oh.
George Delgado. And he was a personal trainer. And he was
Jorge.
actually the manager, Jorge. How do you say it?
Jorge.
Jorge. That's right.
Sounds
yeah.
like Jorge.
Jorge Delgado.
Del Gato. The cat. Del Gato? Delgado? Or
Cato?
A
El
bucigato.
Pusicato.
no, some anyway.
I'm sure we've just managed to offend every Hispanic person ever.
Or-
with
Of the 18 listeners.
I wonder how many, if we could do a split of our 18, how many are, I don't know. I don't even know what Spanish speaking, of course, would be Portuguese speaking as well, I guess, but Hispanic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether
Maybe.
we've offended people or just shown ourselves to be completely ignorant,
Probably both.
which is probably more about us than
Oh, yeah.
anyone
Yeah,
else.
please don't take it personally. It's our only due.
Yeah, it's not you, it's us.
Doesn't mean cat, it means slender. So you've got Mr.
Oh.
Weak and you've got Mr. Slender.
Slender. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Slender Man.
Another
Slender Man.
Slender.
Jorge
Absolutely.
Slender.
Yeah, so Mr. Slender, so Jorge Delgado, and he was working as a personal trainer, and he was also being Daniel Lugo, who was the manager's trainer. He was training him. And now George is important because he had a relationship with a man outside of the gym, and he was a business partner, and this man's name was Mark Schiller. And Mark,
When you say a relationship, was it a business
a
relationship?
business relationship.
It
They were
was
business
not
partners.
sexual.
It was not sexual at all. It was definitely a business relationship. And Delgado and Mark Schiller had been in business since about 91, so for, a good couple of years. And they were trusted, I guess, confidants of one another. They did socialise together with their families, girlfriends or wives and children, been to each other's homes. So they had a decent connection. And Mark Schiller was not a member of the gym, but he was introduced to Daniel Lugo through Delgado, and he immediately felt that something wasn't right and said, I don't think that guy's a good guy. I don't think you should have anything to do with him. He's not giving me a good vibe. Because Mark Schiller was very successful. He was a multimillionaire and he had a number of different business interests.
And brains.
And, well, I guess so. And
Some
he,
intuition about reading people too, yeah.
yeah, and so he, from the outset, wasn't comfortable and sort of said to Delgado, look, I'm not comfortable. If you want to do something with him, then that'd be fine, because there was some talk about doing different things. And that is a very important point to make at this point, because it does come up a little later. So I might introduce you now to Mark Schiller, a little bit more about him and how he became, as successful as he did. He was born in Argentina, actually, and I think he might have been Jewish, given his
Everyone in
surname.
this from some kind of Latin background? Because Lugo is a Spanish
Not
name as
necessarily.
well.
A couple were. And actually, we're going to meet some other people who are from your old neck of the woods a little bit later. And by that, I don't mean Essendon. I mean Hungary.
Hungary?
Oh,
No, Hungary.
Essendon
nothing,
via
just had
Hungary.
dinner.
Well,
I think that, it's a real
bodybuilding.
melting pot, I think. Miami is, really, it is all colours and all things. And it's a very vibrant place. And
It is. It's
but
lovely.
there's I think that,
It's got a big Cuban influence as well.
yes.
Yeah.
But the Hungarians who come into the story a little bit later, they came at a stage where they had grown up watching Miami Vice and were totally, inspired and in love with that idea. So that's how they sort of envisaged Miami and why they ended up there. So you can see that it's it draws people in. It's fast, exciting, there's opportunities, it's the American dream, it's all those things.
And this
it's
is
a
the
but real
90s,
melting
yeah?
pot. This is the 90s.
Yeah.
Mark Schiller, born Marcello Schiller, born in Argentina, but he grew up in the United States where he attended college and he eventually got his CPA, which I think is your practicing accountant, isn't it? Your chartered
Certified practicing,
CPA, but
certified practicing
Certified.
accountants. I used to work there. Yep.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. Mark had a successful
Gosh, it all
medical.
links back to you. You are the
I
common
am.
theme.
Yeah. He had a successful medical billing business, and he also owned a restaurant. And I've read somewhere that he had, I don't know if he owned all of the franchise or just owned a number of franchises of like a deli kind of situation as well. And he also had his finger in some nutritional supplements business, which I guess does lend itself to a little bit of more of a gym thing. But a lot of those things feel like they could be just as current today, especially the supplements. All that stuff is big business now, right? It's huge, where they see those big warehouse style strip mall shops, which obviously started in the US. So there's lots of money in the things that he's sort of been involved in, and no doubt the medical billing business was probably one of them. I think what was happening with Delgado was they were actually looking at a mortgage business or something. I can't find a hell of a lot of information on it, but they were doing something along those lines. So there was he didn't own a franchise, didn't own this. He was just, they would be having meetings and doing stuff, but it doesn't sound particularly clear as to what they were doing or how much or how successful. And given that he was a personal trainer, I think what he was trying to do was find an avenue to make money as opposed to having access to it already. Do you know what I mean? I think he was probably, I've got this idea and I've got this and I know you've got money and I know you've got influence and how are we going to do something together? Which is kind of the only way I can make a connection as to why they would have been sort of hanging out together. Anyway, so there was also another gentleman called John, and I think his name is Mess or Messy. I've got to check that because if I say it incorrectly, it makes a bit of a difference with his name. And he was the owner of the gym. And he was, now we used to use this term a lot in Europe. I think it means, a notary. So he was somebody who, I think he might have been an accountant originally as well, but he did have a bit of a business background and he was someone who could sign documents and, if you know where you need to go to. Do you do that in Australia? Go to a notary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was a notary. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
That's sort of the setup of the Sun Gym and the gentlemen who were sort of the characters in play there. And then we need to sort of jump ahead slightly to a little bit of a situation with our friend Mark Schiller. So in 1994, Daniel Lugo asked Noel Dorbel, Dumbbell, and Stevenson Pierre whether they were interested in making $100,000 for 2 days' work.
Wow. Yes, please, sign me up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not?
How many people have to die?
According to
Okay, I'll
Lugo,
rethink it.
now remember Lugo was the manager and he was the one that Mark Schiller said, doesn't feel right. According to Lugo, businessman Mark Schiller had stolen $100,000 from him and $200,000 from another gym member named George Delgado. At another meeting a few days later, Delgado agreed to the plan to abduct Schiller and force him to sign over his assets and potentially kill him. Delgado was able to give specific information about Schiller, including the codes to his house. So remember, we've got the manager of the gym, who we already sense is not a great guy. We've got the PT, who has been a business partner of Mark Schiller, and he has also been a personal, confidant or whatever else, and he knows codes and has been at their house. And he's now agreeing to this with his new friend, Daniel Lugo. Very nice.
Top bloke.
The gang had varying plans and made attempts to kidnap Schiller. In fact, there were seven failed attempts. One of them was they planned to wear ninja outfits for Halloween and knock on Schiller's door. This plan did not transpire. On an early morning
It sounds like a
I can't believe
Hanna-Barbera
it
show.
wouldn't work. What went wrong?
Yeah. They probably got spotted coming out of their car dressed as ninjas.
Funny you
and
should
someone
say
went,
that.
"What the fuck?"
You're
On an
not
early
kids.
morning in November, Doorbell Pierre Weeks, dressed in black and wearing gloves and military camouflage makeup, crawled across the lawn, planning to storm the house when Schiller went to get the newspapers. However, a passing car scared them off.
That's commitment.
As I said, there were 7 failed attempts. They were just in costumes.
They were
ridiculous.
doing it. Was
Yes,
it
but
dark?
it was like morning, like
When you say it was early in the morning, was it? I just got visions of it being like 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's
what time did you go get the paper? Let's say it was.
they're
7.
dressed in
I don't know.
black. Okay.
Their final failed attempt happened on Thursday, November 14th in 1994. And after that failed attempt, they ended up getting in Big Mario, a former Sun Gym weightlifting instructor and licensed program. They sort of
Are you
had to
kidding?
get some more help. The same day, Big Mario. The same afternoon, Schiller was waiting for a prospective buyer at a Scholensky's franchise delicatessen that he owned. At 4 p.m., when the buyer hadn't turned up, Schiller left and was grabbed by 3 men while crossing the parking lot, who stunned him with tasers and then punched him and forced him into a waiting van. The Sun Gym Gang, which we will now refer to them as, the Sun Gym Gang. And I want to say Sun Gym...
SGG.
The Sun City Casino. I always think Sun City. Does that ring a bell with you guys in South Africa? Yeah. The Sun Gym Gang.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Oh, have you? I haven't. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
The Sun Gym Gang then took Schiller to Delgado's warehouse. The PT, the personal trainer, has a warehouse. But anyway, there you go.
I think he's.
I'm going to take you to my warehouse. Don't let me take you to your week. Exactly. Let me take you to my warehouse. That evening.
Haven't you got a warehouse? Is that what you're saying? You want a warehouse?
Do you have a warehouse? Go to your warehouse. No, go to my warehouse.
Yeah, whose warehouse are we going to use?
Oh, which one would
Mine's
you want?
full.
Where else?
No, mine's
We
pretty
have to empty it out.
They went back to the car park and retrieved Schiller's car from the parking lot, and they drove it to the warehouse.
By retrieved, you mean stole?
Yeah.
Collected, yes. That first evening, the gang made Schiller call his wife and tell her to go with his children to Colombia, giving the gang access to his house. Now, what I don't know about is, because if he's from Argentina, I don't know where the connection with Colombia is, but they must have had a house there or something, because basically she does what she's told. So she leaves, and then you never hear about her and the kids again, which I just find odd. I think that if someone called and said, you've got to leave the country with the kids, and I did it, I guess they must have threatened as such that she was silent, but wouldn't you have kind of mentioned it?
They probably got abducted by a cartel.
For weeks, the gang made Schiller tell a series of stories, and under pressure...
So when you mean for a period of time as Weeks or Mr. Weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, no, over a period of time.
Right, thank you.
They just were so terrible to him. Oh, my God, the things that they did. Let me find you a list of how mean. And
are we going to go into torture?
We might do. There's a couple of quotes here from him. I don't want to go too much into that because, quite frankly, I was looking at another story to do when I chose this one, and I couldn't actually repeat some of the things that I was reading. I was so not in this story. This is not great, but honestly, this other story that I found, and I will talk to you guys about it another time. Whoa.
Iramatio?
Sickos.
Oh,
no, yeah.
Stop it.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, God.
I do know what you mean. You're like,
I don't think I can repeat it. Yeah,
what?
I don't. And I'm not comfortable with that.
I want to hear the sunshine after the rain. Give me the happy stuff.
Well, they tased him obviously when they got him. They handcuffed him, and they just started to torture and beat him. And what they were doing, like they were putting cigarettes out on him and burning him. And
why were they doing this?
Well, because they're sickos to some extent.
But
there was they're going to get to that point, yeah. Right. So to start with, to try and totally unsettle him, they tased Mark, they'd handcuffed him, and then they went through this they were just trying to torture him to get him totally unsettled because they had a plan and they wanted stuff from him and they wanted him to start to sign over his assets. So to do that, they really went in hard, and they were burning him. He's quoted as saying, obviously, that he thought he was going to die in the warehouse. And after they tortured and beat him for days, one of them, he said that Doorbell doorbell, dumbbell, would yell, fire, fire, and then he would burn me, burn my skin, and then he'd do it again. And he said he would be laughing so hard that he could hear that he was crying, that he'd laughed that much while they were doing it to him. They wouldn't let him go to the toilet. They had his head all masked up with masking tape, and they even played Russian roulette with him. They threatened to rape his wife.
When you say they played Russian roulette with him, did they have a
gun
bullet in there?
Well, apparently, yeah.
Because that's pretty high risk.
Yes. So
if you're kidnapping someone, wanting them to sign stuff over.
Yeah.
It just shows how stupid they are.
That comes to bear later. Eventually, the torture got to Mark, and they basically got him to agree to sign over all his assets. He was still handcuffed, all this sort of stuff. And I holding him upside down, he was signing papers. It was just beyond belief, really. It sounds like I'm making it up. While blindfolded, he was still signing over assets to his home, to his bank accounts, a life insurance policy that he had.
And surely you'd be giving up all your leverage, though. And, once you sign it off, they're just going to kill you. There's nothing. Yeah. There's no point.
Well, that was what their plan is, yeah. And I think what they had also done is they had set up a Bahamian, offshore companies. They could do it not in their names. So it was all being sent somewhere else, and then they were going to use it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're going to sign it over to me. My name is Daniel Lugo. Please sign over to me. My name is George Delgado. Yeah. So once the group got hold of the properties and the money, whatever else, all of his assets, they kept Mark for a while before deciding to kill him. And what they decided to do was they thought they wanted to make it look like an accident. So they basically pumped alcohol into him over a period of about 3 days, get him really drunk. And I think they had sleeping tablets in there as well. And then the plan was that they would put him into a car and they would stage a drunken accident. So what they did was...
Can't be easy to do, can it?
Well, it is crazy, really.
Well, it's easier than hijacking someone dressed as a ninja, obviously.
I thought they might have gone, he tried to lift too many weights at the gym and the dumbbell or the barbell fell on his throat and he died. Yeah. Oh. That might be... staging a drunken car crash sounds like...
a lot of work.
I think it's ambitious. Go wrong. I have to say that they're very ambitious. It's like all things, given their skill sets, and they are, they're not put off by, trying something a little bit. Oh, let's just be a little bit left of field. I think we could give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. To be honest, they're successful to an extent. So it comes to a sort of a crescendo where after weeks of them, getting his autograph, getting everything sort of planned, what was supposed to be like a 2-day abduction has gone on for about, I think, 3 weeks it works out as being, where they've converted assets into, the Bahamas, Cayman Islands, whatever else. They've transferred money. They've got the insurance policy signed over to one of the girlfriends or an ex-wife of one of their, so it's a new beneficiary they are. They're ready to get rid of him. So the gang planned to get Sheila drunk, over 3 sort of days, and send him out in his car for the fatal crash. So at 2:30 on December 15, so it's about a month later actually. After 3 days of forced drinking, Sheila was placed into the passenger seat of his car with Lugo driving, while Weeks and Dumbbell followed in a Camry. A crash site was chosen 3 blocks south of Shaletsky's, which was the deli that he owned.
The deli, yeah.
Sheila was then strapped into the driver's seat, and Lugo moved into the passenger side and stomped the gas pedal and steered the vehicle towards a concrete utility pole, jumping out just before the collision. When Lugo inspected the wreckage, so remember he's driving behind in the Camry, Sheila was still alive but unconscious. Lugo then splashed gasoline over him and lit it on fire.
Oh, no.
However, Sheila opened the door and climbed out of the car.
Good on him.
The gang chased him in their car, nailing him against a wall. And then it doesn't say in this source, but somewhere else I've read that they actually ran over him not once but twice. Then as another car approached, it caused them to speed off.
Yeah, because they're frightened of cars.
Yeah, they are. That's very true.
They ran away from the first one they saw. Yeah.
I thought I had a bad day yesterday.
This is a tough month, really. This is the nightmare run up to Christmas. We're only at December 15. Oh, hey, but what's today?
Yeah.
Oh, we're a day shy. Oh, imagine that was what got to. I mean, imagine I'm feeling a little bit under the pump.
Pissed. We should just be really drunk and on sleeping pills if we're following his timeline. Yeah.
I think that there must be something in that as to why he survived all of that back end.
Very relaxed,
because he was
perhaps.
so hammered over 3 days. His body just, bleh. So on December 16th, Sheila was admitted into hospital, and he was treated as John Doe and a possible DUI because they found him, pissed out of his head, right?
Looks like he's been in a car accident. Yeah.
Correct. First of all, when he comes
Does it though? If he's been run over 2 times?
Well,
or
this is
something?
the thing.
knows,
They
yeah.
don't even take him seriously. So whilst he's in hospital and he sort of comes to, he's in a critical but stable condition.
I keep thinking about Weekend at Bernie's. I know he's
Yes,
not dead,
it's totally.
but
This is the problem with this
feel
story. That's
about
what.
it. Yeah.
There's your levity. Is how ludicrous some of this sounds. And then you just keep surviving and getting on with it, kind of thing.
But they do say that if you're drunk and you fall over, you bounce, so you won't injure yourself.
You're
so I
more
reckon
relaxed,
maybe
yeah.
because he's drunk, he's just bouncing off everything.
Maybe.
I'm fine.
Goodness me. So he comes to in the hospital and he tries to tell them that he's been kidnapped. But because he's come in and under the situation of a DUI, they just think he's still pissed. They don't take him seriously. And he starts to really freak out, whatever else. And he's then, I don't know if it's immediately, I think he's moved to another hospital. At the same time, the Sun Gym gang start calling the hospitals and the morgue trying to find out where he is. Or because they were calling the morgue. Surely he's dead, right? Morgue has nobody, so then they start calling hospitals in the area, and they discover that Schiller was at South Miami Hospital in a critical but stable condition. So the gang visit the hospital intending to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But when they get there, he's already gone, and he was transferred to another hospital.
It really does sound like a far-fetched film plot.
It's ridiculous, right? And then at that point, I think he gets in touch with a lawyer and then his sister, and they get him out, and he ends up in Staten Island, I think it was, in a hospital in Staten Island, and then he goes to stay with his sister in Long Island which I don't know why they don't even connect, but within New York State, he ends up in Long Island with his sister for a little while to recuperate. That's kind of it, for the want of. It's sort of like, oh, okay, but then what happens? And so he's gone off. The wife's in Colombia. And then back in Miami, the Sun Gym gang have just sort of start getting on with things. So in early January 1995, so this happened in December, they get Christmas out of the way. And then Daniel Lugo moves into Schiller's home that D&J International, which is one of the companies that he set up in Bahamian.
It's pretty bold, isn't
company.
it?
Nuts.
He's still alive. You would think he's going to rat on us. We better not move into the house. We'll pretend like none of it happened.
They know he's alive and they don't understand where he is at the time. So they move into his house and they tell residents of the neighbourhood that they are members of the US security forces and that Mark Schiller and his family were in legal trouble and they'd been deported, he and his family had been deported. And the house was now confiscated and become government property, and they were there to, I think, see what else was going on and what else they could uncover, which seemed like a plausible cover, right? If someone disappears so quickly.
No, if someone moved into the house next door and they said all that shit to me, I'd be like, you're a bonkers or something.
Maybe if they were all bodybuilders, I would be a little bit suspicious, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. There's so many whack things that happen with American sort of borders and police and FBI and CIA and whatever else. I wouldn't know who to believe, to be honest.
Carla, if someone in the house next door to you said that they've moved in because they're from the special forces or whatever and the people have been deported,
it's the right reaction.
It's just
fair
nonsense.
Enough.
That's exactly right.
Maybe I've had a bit too much in my
face.
Miami mind. Yeah, fair enough. I take your point.
You've been watching too many movies too.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're probably right there. So whilst this is happening, Mark Schiller gets in touch, I believe, with a lawyer who puts him in touch with a gentleman called Ed Dubois. And Ed Dubois is a private...
Have you heard about Ed Dubois before?
I don't know. It sounds like something out of every Southern kind of thing, like Blanche Dubois or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, from Golden Girls.
Yeah. Oh, God, it just stays there that nobody's listening to him. So when he was in hospital, when he's come to, he was covered in burns, cuts, and a broken pelvis. However, nobody believed his story, saying to him, it was just an accident you've been in. And he eventually contacts Ed Dubois, who's a private investigator. And Ed Dubois is the one who says, right, this is what's happened. And I've temporarily moved to Colombia because I can't, I need to be safe and go back to find my wife. This is what these people have done to me. He didn't actually put a report in to police until April of 1995.
Oh, my God.
But as he said, the police never believed him, ever. And there are situations where they were, laughing at the story and saying, oh, it was just fabricated, whatever else. No one was taking any of it seriously. But Ed Dubois was starting to put the piece of the puzzle together. He was working in the background on it. So
I am shocked.
Where are our Sun Gym gang? What are they up to? Living the high life? Absolutely.
For sure.
They've got access to money. So they're going to strip joints and they're on the gear and, still going to the gym, still working out. They are spending money at such a fast rate that they think that maybe they need to find a new target. So at one point there was a gentleman called Winston Lee that they were interested in, but that sort of fell apart and they didn't end up sort of following him. He was a Jamaican guy who was going to the gym, but they let it go because through Noel Doorbell, I can't say it. Oh, the gang were made aware of another wealthy man. And here comes
Oh, no.
Schmidt's vote.
Oh,
He was a Hungarian
God.
gentleman called Frank Grieger. And Frank had immigrated to America. As I said, he had been watching Miami Vice from abroad at some point. So I don't know at what time he came into the US, but he was in his early 30s at this point. And he had made his fortune by running a phone sex empire, which if you think about what that was in the 1990s, and late TV, you know how it used to be on late night on TV and calling
Double
through.
O, double five.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Frank had a girlfriend called Christina Burton, and I believe Christina was also Hungarian. I don't know that her surname sounds terribly Hungarian, Furton, but Christina has a Z in it, if that helps. So that sounds kind of Hungarian, right?
Totally spelling.
Pretty spelling. No, Hungarian spelling. Krisz.
Yeah, totally.
Christina.
Yes, and they had been introduced, Noel Doorbell had introduced Daniel Lugo as his cousin to Grieger on May 20. And Doorbell convinced Lugo to form a plan to kidnap and extort the couple. And they were trying to sort of set them up saying, look, we could do a serious business deal. So Lugo and Doorbell posed as serious businessmen offering Grieger investment opportunities. Lugo involved his girlfriend, Sabrina, who believed that Lugo was a CIA agent.
Oh,
Not at all. And that she was assisting him in his mission to capture a Hungarian businessman who was guilty of using women for sex and circumnavigating US tax laws.
it's got everything, this story.
I know, it's crazy. After several meetings on May 25, 1995, so we're the following year from when Mark Schiller was abducted, Doorbell, I think accidentally is important, accidentally killed Grieger during a fight at his apartment.
No.
The gang had planned to bring Grieger back to the warehouse where they could begin to extort him, a la the way they had with Mark Schiller, but that kind of went a little bit haywire, didn't it, when they accidentally knocked him off straight up. And when their victim was killed early, and Christina was with Frank.
So they tried to kill someone and failed.
Yeah,
and then they
tried not to kill
didn't
someone.
try to kill someone.
That is exactly
and
right.
Did.
So Christina was in the apartment in another room at the same time, and after witnessing her partner being murdered, she was injected with Rompun, which is a horse tranquilizer.
Oh, my Lord.
By Daniel Lugo. And the idea was then, okay, we'll use her. We will get the codes for the house. We'll do everything through Christina. The gang began to attempt to extract information from Christina regarding the codes, which would grant entry into his home, whilst continuing to inject her with Rompun. After this, she stopped supplying him with information, and then when someone turned up at the house, the codes weren't working. And so they gave her a little bit more to try, make her a little bit more compliant. Yeah. And on the third dose of tranquilizer, it resulted in her death. Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, Schmitty, that was, remember you were saying before, if he signs stuff, then he's got no currency and they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
If you don't, they horse tranquilize you to death. It's kind of lose-lose. They really are, I agree.
I mean, she's not giving us what we want, so let's give her more of something
more
that could
horse
give her.
tranquilizer.
Yeah. No, they're not. They're right.
I'll just go back a tiny bit. Furton is an extremely common name in Hungary.
Is it?
Yes.
I take that back. Furton. Yeah, Furton.
It normally would have umlauts over it.
I was going to say, it doesn't look at it at all. But I take it.
Furton. There you go. It's a very Hungarian name.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear that. I'm so pleased because I thought maybe she'd changed it or Americanized it, or she'd been married before. She's young. She's like 20.
I feel sorry for them, not just because they're dead and victims of this story, but I think the timing is interesting. And as you say, you don't know when they actually moved to the US.
No.
But Hungary, the communism fell in Hungary in 89-90.
Yes.
So you would have had young Hungarians being exposed a lot more to Western stuff.
Yep.
And more interested in going over to places like Miami and that. So that's a bit of a tragic story, that one. So far. I'm sure you've got more to tell us.
Oh,
So
not
informative.
but it is. But I think that's really important in terms of who these people were, because Mark Schiller and Frank and Christina, they weren't bad people. They were involved in some colourful things. So, for instance, with the sex lines or whatever else, they were a really loving couple, but they frequented, strip joints. That doesn't mean you deserve to be
No,
killed, all that kind of stuff.
No.
They were definitely on that side. There was exposure to different parts of their life, certainly, and coming across people like that. It wasn't all above board, but it wasn't criminal necessarily. Do you know what I'm saying? No.
Yeah, I do.
And they certainly had a dream, but all three of them had that dream, the American dream of really working hard, and they had done it through hard work. They weren't necessarily ill-gotten gains. They
didn't steal from other people. They didn't.
They weren't killing people to get their money.
Torture people to get their cash.
So what happens there is May 25 is when they are killed. May 26, the housekeeper turns up at their house. They weren't killed in their house. They were killed at the apartment, right? And she finds their dog barking like crazy, and she said they would never have left their dog. And I swear on one of the things I listened to, and I'm not sure if I was right, I think the dog might have been called Zaza.
Peasant girl.
Yeah. But their beautiful dog, who they loved, was left alone. It pooed everywhere in the house, and they said that would never have happened.
Oh, poor Shasha.
Dirty.
Also, they were due to go. They had a house in the Bahamas, and they were due to fly out, I think that day or the next day. And the housekeeper found their tickets, because it wasn't online. In the olden days, in the 90s, it was your paper tickets. So she saw the ticket and she wasn't comfortable with that at all. So she called a friend of theirs and said, what do you know about Frank and Christina? Do you know where they are? And then that's sort of where they started that. And the thing was, they had no crime scene, no body, but they were concerned that they were missing. So she acquired the help of Judy Barthez, a friend of Furton, and the two entered the house together. Shortly following, Barthez contacted their mutual Hungarian friends in the Miami area to see if they knew of the couple's whereabouts. After some time, the Golden Beach Police Department were called, and at 7:30 a.m. on May 31, so that's some days later, Lloyd Alvarez, a friend of Grieger's, spotted his yellow Lamborghini travelling in a convoy between two other cars, so like trying to hide it kind of thing. He followed the trio of cars and recognised Daniel Lugo in the Mercedes, and basically they contacted the police. So what had happened to Frank Grieger and Christina Furton? Well, the day after they were killed, Grieger's body was concealed in Mark Schiller's stolen couch, and Burton's body was put in a U-Haul clothing box. Both were placed in the back of a van, and Delgado and Double drove to Daniel Lugo's warehouse. This is just horrendous. It was here that the gang dismembered and disposed of the bodies of Grieger and Furton, putting them in drums, like just the usual, just horrendous.
Yuck.
So 8 days after their disappearance, Captain Al Harper phoned Ed Dubois, and they began to collaborate with the police investigation, because now all the things that they were starting to say, or Mark Schiller had said, perhaps there might be a bit of common ground here. Mark Schiller returned to Miami 2 months after he had first told investigators his story. So he's now back in Miami because, there might be something happening here. Someone might actually want to listen to him now. The next morning, Metro-Dade Police Service served warrants in the houses of Daniel Lugo, George Delgado, Noel Dumbbell, and John Meese, who is the gym owner and the notary. Because he was used, I don't know if I actually went into that, I think I forgot, but when they were getting all of the paperwork signed over, they needed somebody, right, and he did it all. He did it all. And what is quite interesting is Ed Dubois knew John Meese. I think they'd gone to school or uni together or something like that. So he had got in touch when he was doing his PI work. He'd got in touch with him and said, do you want to tell me what happened here? Because I've got someone who's saying that he's been tortured and there's been threatened to be murdered or tried to be murdered, and your name is on all the documents of all of the things that were his belongings and no longer, his assets. So he goes, I don't know. So he got, I don't know, one of them turned up. They were supposed to be Delgado and Lugo turned up. And one of them did and basically wouldn't answer any questions. But he took a bodyguard with him. So that was sort of happening in the background. So again, there was another moment there where people were having conversations about what was going on, but it didn't appear that the police were terribly in the loop. Do you know what I mean? It was just all
It
happening
does sound like Dubois
underground
basically
and under the radar.
set
It's
the
crazy.
whole case up, and the police rang up and said, "So who did it?" And they were like, he's like, "Here's all the evidence," and so they went and arrested these people.
So with the warrants, they got Daniel Lugo, George Delgado, Notable, and Jomes, but Daniel Lugo had already fled to the Bahamas, but he was arrested 5 days later at Nassau by a multi-agency task force and brought back to Miami. On June 10,
a multi-agency task force.
Daniel
He was part of the
Lugo
special
agreed to reveal the
forces,
hiding
remember?
place of the bodies in return for police mentioning his helpfulness. He took them to the submerged barrels. However, the drums did not contain the victims' heads, hands, and feet, which were
all
crucial in
about
identification.
IDing them, yeah.
However, the body of Furton was later identified, and I think this is the first person that this is the first time this has been used, through her breast implant serial numbers, which was matched to records held by her plastic surgeon. Police also arrested Carl Weeks and Stephen St. Pierre, and the girlfriends also faced some charges.
Well, they said they were names on, they were beneficiaries on some things, weren't they?
Yeah. Correct. Who behaves like this? Like, at what point do you go from being, involved in a bit of fraud or having maybe too many steroids and getting a bit cranky to being full blown cutting people's bodies up, literally dissecting them?
I don't think roid rage is having a few too many steroids and getting a bit cranky. I think you'll find it has a significant effect on your ability to judge situations. And react appropriately.
Horrendous.
I feel like I've watched a movie on fast forward, and so I've seen some of the things that happen. I know part of the storyline, but I've just got no idea what just happened. Like
that, I will bring that in now. And there was a movie that was the problem with the movie was, and you can see, having gone through the story, that it's rich fodder for, I don't know, a dark comedy. And unfortunately, it's a little bit like what we do every week. There's elements of it which are so farcical that it is humorous, but there are victims.
Yeah.
And that was what they found very difficult. So there was a movie released in 2013, and the director was Michael Bay, who's like action man. I think he did Armageddon and Transformers and stuff. And the leads in it were Mark Wahlberg and The Rock. So The Rock. And it was called Pain and Gain. But I've got some quotes here from, I think I can find something about where the sister, and that's so sad. When they've come out, like when the movie was released, people were really not pleased. Prosecutors, former detectives, and the sister of one of the victims, however, are concerned that the movie, the tagline, their American dream is bigger than yours, will portray the killers in a sympathetic light and play down the brutality of the murders. I think it's ridiculous. It's horrible what happened to them, said Susanna Grieger, the sister of Frank Grieger, murdered along with his girlfriend Christina Furton. I don't want the American public to be sympathetic to those killers. Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle said, "What Hollywood is going to do, Hollywood is going to do. My thoughts are with the victims. To trivialize that, this horrible tale of torture and death makes a mockery out of their lives and the justice system." Billed as an action comedy, Pain and Gain opens in April 2013 and stars Mark Wahlberg as Lugo, Anthony Mackie, don't know who that is, as Dorbel, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Paul Doyle, an apparent sort of fictional composite character based on several members of the murderous crew. They say it's a true story up front, and I've seen parts of it last night, and I might actually watch it now, but it is...
Poor taste. It looks like just poor taste.
It really is. And there's a scene where they are barbecuing, like they've got a Weber, and they're barbecuing hands and feet and like turning them to try and get rid of them. But it must be really difficult for
the family
anyone who's touched by this. It's horrendous. And so that brings me to, where is Mark Schiller now? So Mark Schiller, not happy. And the gentleman who plays Mark Schiller, have any of you watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? So the dad in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is the person who is the Mark Schiller character. He's not called Mark Schiller, he's called someone Kershaw, I can't remember. And he's a really flashy, unlikable chap. And so Mark Schiller's saying, "I can't believe that you've done this. I was tortured. These people tried to murder me. And you're making so much money, and you're portraying me out as an absolute
like
dick
I
who
asked
deserved
for it.
it."
Yeah.
Correct. So he's written two books. One was called Pain and Gain, The Untold True Story. The other was called imaginatively Pain and Gain, How I Survived and Triumphed. Turned out that once they'd gone to trial, and we can go through what they were charged with, but Mark Schiller, was also arrested by the FBI for a Medicare scam, which they insisted had never happened. But Mark eventually took a plea deal because he said he was so tired of fighting. He did have to serve 2 years in prison. But he's repeatedly reclaimed his innocence. But he did find life difficult when he came out because he'd lost his CPA license, but he did get it back after a couple of years. So he's now a tax specialist somewhere. So he just sort of has got on with his life. Would you like to know what they were? I mean,
The charges were?
Honestly, I can't. What's quite nice is it's just simply lists. Can you see that? That's one person. Yep.
Hey, before you do that, do you want me to tell you about a movie review of Pain and Gain?
Please do.
What a load of old shit.
Oh, my God. No. So this is from Sebastian Joseph, and it's from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
This movie literally makes you want to work out. It's not hard to get inspired and hit the gym after you've done watching this movie. You know, when this movie came out in 2013, I watched it twice in theatres, and when it came out on Blu-ray, I watched this movie on repeat. The movie has such a good rewatch value. You can watch it again and again, and you cannot get tired of it. In my opinion, this was one of the best movies of 2013, and it's really hard to believe that the guy who has a hard-on for explosions, aka Michael Bay, made this. This movie just proves that he is immensely capable of making good movies when he's not making popcorn flicks like Transformers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The dark humour in this movie is superb, and what's even shocking is that it happened for real.
For real.
I remember being intrigued and curious about the real story behind the film when I had just watched it in theatres. I can see that the critics shat all over this film, but despite that, I assure you this is one movie you don't want to miss out on. The ending especially is inspirational and well written. Easily one of the most inspirational quotes I've seen in movies. And do you want to hear one of the most inspirational quotes you've seen in movies?
This whole thing's upsetting me, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm shocked. So this is the bit that should be read in a Sylvester Stallone voice, but I can't do it, so I'll just read it in my voice. All I ever wanted out of life was what everyone else had. Not more, just not the less I was used to. Well, I took a real swing for it, you know, and for a while it was like I always thought it would be. I was one of you and it felt good. People finally saw me like I saw myself, and you can't ask for more than that. Maybe I did, though. Maybe it got so I didn't want to be equal anymore. I wanted to be better than. And that's a recipe for injury.
Look,
that doesn't mean you give up,
quotes
though.
Should be like
you
2
rest,
lines.
You
this
heal,
is too long. Okay.
And you get back on that bench. Seriously,
get back
you
on
rest,
that bench.
you heal, and you get back on that bench.
Is that what we were waiting for? Yeah.
Life is going to give me another set, and I'm going to rock it because my name is Daniel Lugo, and I believe in fitness.
I feel totally. That guy has like you just know he's got like an erection while he's like typing that up.
Yeah.
It's easily one of the most inspirational quotes I've seen in movies.
Easily. This guy probably could have got a gig with the Sun Gym Gang quite easily.
Because my name is Daniel Lugo and I believe in fitness.
What? Hey, do you want to hear some inspirational movie quotes, or do you want to finish this story?
Oh, just at least 1 or 2 that are shorter and snappier and actually inspirational would be great.
True to the point.
I can tell you some. So here's some other 25 best inspirational movie quotes. I'm not going to give you 25. I'll give
and
you
I'm
some
guessing
of them.
Pain and Gain doesn't rate a mention, but yeah.
This is from SamuelThomasDavies.com.
Mm-hmm.
A wise man can learn more from his enemies than a fool from his friends.
Right.
Do or do not.
There is no try.
Correct, yep. Every man dies, but not every man really lives.
Ooh, deep.
Don't let anyone ever make you feel like you don't deserve what you want.
Oh, that's kind of a bit like Pain and Gain.
It's in theme. Great men are not born great; they grow great.
Okay.
And lastly,
life is going to give me another set and I'm going to rock it because my name is Daniel Lugo and I believe in fitness.
Oh, you're joking.
I am absolutely
thank
joking.
God for that.
Yes. My name is Daniel Lugo and I believe in fitness. Like, how is that inspirational?
Mama always said stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah. I kill people because I believe in fitness.
Right. So we didn't get to their sentences, did we? We got interrupted.
Yes, rudely interrupted by
By the
The
Gardener.
sentences are nearly like sort of, you wouldn't quite say they're immaterial, but after the craziness of that, they're, a bit dull, really. They caught them all. They all went to court. They all had their day where they got...
I hope desecration of a corpse was there.
I'm just going through... There's one here for Daniel Lugo. There's so many counts.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracy to commit racketeering, first-degree murder, kidnapping, attempted extortion, grand theft auto, attempted first-degree murder, armed kidnapping, armed burglary, grand theft second-degree, grand theft auto, possession of an identification plate, arson, extortion, money laundering, forgery, uttering a forged instrument, conspiracy to commit a first-degree felony. So that's Daniel Lugo. He remains on death row, if this is accurate. This is taken from Wikipedia, which is the most current thing I can see, for the murders of Grieger and Christina. He's made multiple unsuccessful appeals against his sentence. Noel Dawble, I won't go through the list, but it's pretty similar. It's like about 1 million different points. Now, this is interesting. It says because of changes to capital punishment laws, Dawble's death sentence was overturned in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any more information on that, so I can't really help you. The gentleman who was at the gym who owned it, he was indicted in 1906 for kidnapping, extortion, and the murders, even though I don't know that he was there. He was
An accessory too?
Yeah, he was sentenced to 56 years imprisonment for the kidnapping, extortion of Schiller after a judge set aside the convictions for the Grieger and Burton crimes. Job was appealed, and the state cross-appealed the sentence to the Florida District Court of Appeal. The District Court of Appeal judge ruled that at trial the judge had improperly set aside the 2 racketeer-influenced and corrupt organisation convictions. Honestly, it's such a yawn. I'm not interested in that. No offense.
Such
fair
a
enough.
yawn.
All
Not
this
after the shenanigans.
Actual judicial shit. Who cares
There we
about
go.
that?
And to be fair, he was sentenced to 30 years, but he's dead because he died of a stroke. So I don't point going down that avenue. What I
Too
do
many
find
roids.
interesting is this. In return for testifying in favour of the state, Delgado, who was a bad boy, was sentenced to 2 prison terms of 5 and 15 years. He served only 7 years in jail and was released from the Everglades Correctional Institution in 2002.
Are you pulling
In
my teeth,
2008, he was
Veronica?
arrested for felony grand theft, receiving 1 year of probation. I mean, where
Did
is
he find
now?
God?
I don't care to really focus. I think let's just chat about peanuts who are criminals, really. That's what
Criminal
would you like-
peanuts.
Criminal. I mean,
Oh, that's the name for
What?
this episode. Criminal peanuts.
Did they get done for impersonating criminal masterminds?
no. No, they did not. That was-
Fraudulently impersonating criminal masterminds.
I just, like sometimes things happen and, you will be reading about a crime and you think, oh, that could have gone that way or that could have gone another way or that happened quickly or, God, surely that'll be the end. Some things just go
Yeah,
on and on
yeah.
and on and on and on. It feels like that with him. There were so many times with that whole scene around the car accident.
Yeah.
Hey, boss,
And then-
I know
and then-
how we can kill him.
He was drunk and drugged. The car accident itself set him alight and then
Ran him
running
over.
over him and he still survived. What
He
a
is Superman.
comedy of errors, yes. So, Schmitty, Clarkie, is there anybody that you might like to take to task, perhaps, on their behaviour when it comes to the Sun Gym Gang? It doesn't have a ring to me, Sun Gym Gang. Do you find it hard to
No,
say?
it's
Sounds
like
stupid.
It sounds like a meal you get at a Thai
Asian
restaurant or
restaurant.
something.
I'll have the Sim Gym.
I have the
I
Sun.
can't say it. I can't for the Sun
I have
Gym
the Sun
Gang.
Gym Gang, please.
The Simpson Gang.
Yeah. I think I'd like the sauce that it came
You like
with.
the
It'll be
fly
peanut
lice
sauce.
or the steam lice?
I have the Sun Gym Gang. Yeah. It doesn't roll off my tongue, shall we say.
I'm a little bit still confused by the whole story. I know.
Sorry.
I know. No, you've told it well. It's just bizarre. I know bad stuff happened, but I can see why the movie became a dark comedy because it's kind of nonsensical, but obviously bad shit happened. Yeah, I like the use of horse tranquilizer as a punishment for them for particularly the roided up one, and I wouldn't be against a bit of testicle shrinking roids for them all as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's sort of sentences around bringing criminal activity into disrepute. I think that they're the sorts of punishments you'd give, like horse tranquilizer and the roids to shrink their testicles. But there's also really bad shit that happened that, you know, they need serious punishment as well as nonsensical punishment. Schmitty, thoughts?
I was trying to think of the term. There's a story we did where one of the perpetrators was described as a pathological numbnut. And I feel like, and I was trying to remember the term. That's why I got distracted. And I thought,
Yeah.
these guys should be diagnosed as pathological numbnuts.
Is that their sentence?
Well,
that's their life
sentence. It sort of plays to your point about the roid and testicle shrinkage. You know, there's definitely something testicle related here.
I mean, I hid the body in a couch.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, but then they
What?
went on.
And that's in the movie. There's a scene. I mean, I've only seen it wasn't in the trailer, but I must have seen part of it in like one of the things that I was watching. There's like a mover's box, and like her arm is out the top of the box.
That is so distasteful.
Yeah,
that is so
but the barbecuing of the hands and the feet when they're like literally turning them with the barbecue tongs. Yeah.
Maybe what we should do is sentence them to be the stunt doubles in a Michael Bay film.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Because, you know, they're all jacked up and they're all strong men, and maybe we should put them in those scenes with massive car accidents and explosions and shoot 'em out scenes. But we won't, you know, like we won't give them any protective gear or train them on how to actually avoid injury. Unlike Mark, we won't let them be drunk and full of sleeping pills so they bounce back. We'll let them experience all of that pain. They're like, reprehensible is not a big enough word. Like they are scums. Like, we started talking at a minor break and Swanny referred to someone as a scumbag. These guys are scumbags. You know, they really are. And, you know, so I'm trying to come up with something that's appropriate to people who think it's all right to just rob from people and torture people and murder people. And I was quite shocked by the fact that they'd ripped this man off all of his money, and then they move into his house and they're acting like there's no big problem, and they're just spending it, and they're out on the gear, they're having a grand old time. There's something missing in their heads and their hearts to behave this way.
I used to work with someone, and I referred to her as a dangerous combination of dumb and confident. And I think that's exactly what these lot are. Like, they are so dumb and yet so confident that what they're doing is okay and that they'll get away with it.
I've got a good punishment. Sorry, I want them to all have to eat McDonald's every meal.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Oh, okay, sorry. You take it away. Take it away.
I do, because
I just get fat and flabby. Yeah, but you go ahead.
It's a bit like it's a bit like to Clarkie's,
because they believe in fatness.
What did he say? I believe in fitness.
Fitness, not fatness. I accidentally said I believe in fatness.
I would like to see all of them be really unfit, but weak. I would like to see them and weak, and some of them can be like, you know, dangerously thin. Some of them can be heavily overweight. They can be whatever it is that really bothers them, you know, whichever end of the spectrum is the worst. Yep. Because where they sit is they think that doing steroids and pumping iron makes them feel and look a certain way, right? That's what, you know, helps with their confidence. So I want them to be their worst version of themselves, but I want them to be able to struggle to try and do some exercise and have no results. So nothing changes. So not only are they not fit, but they are frustrated by the fact that nothing seems to work, right? Because they're used to using drugs and working out. Correct. Mm-hmm. I want them to feel like they're not seen, nobody cares, they certainly have no money, they've got no swagger, and they've got no fitness. And they can't just go and get jacked up after a couple of
even if they believe
and go
in
out
it.
And impress the ladies. Absolutely. Nothing works. They are just those poor people who...
false idol that they worship is abandoned them. Yes, beautiful.
Absolutely. So they should have that at the very least, is what they should be looking and feeling like.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just take their bones out so they're just like jelly, and then they can roid up all they want? But without bones, none of it matters.
Wouldn't it be the muscles? It's the muscles, isn't it, or the bones?
No, because the muscle's attached to the bones, and that gives you the ability to do stuff.
True.
If they're just like take all the
Jellyfish.
bones out, so still human shape, but with no bones, they'll just be
No structure.
So also coming back to one of the most inspirational movie quotes of all time, all I ever wanted out of life was what everyone else had. Not more,
Correct.
just not the less I was used to. Now, I'm pretty sure
That's
the
not true.
Hungarians actually had to work for their money.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't come into money easily. In fact, they've probably escaped communist Russia, or, you know, whilst it's all breaking
Communist
down,
Hungary,
come across, communist Hungary, come across whilst it's all breaking down. So left everything behind and had to start again, and became wealthy because they had smarts and they worked hard and blah, blah, blah.
And those people, just because of my heritage, I can tell you, they escaped a country that from World War One has been in extreme disarray, extreme internal conflict. They weren't old enough to have experienced the revolution, but their parents would have done. Times were real tough, and they've come to America. They've worked bloody hard to get where they are.
But so if you don't want to be the less that you're used to, work hard. And I get that can be hard for people if they've come from a disadvantaged background. But I guess what I'm saying is that the Hungarians don't sound like they've had a particularly privileged lifestyle.
No, I don't think they've ever come at
And he thinks it's okay to want what they've got and get it by killing them rather than being a decent human. So I feel like he should be subject to a life of less than what he actually was, not what he was used to, but even less than that.
Yep.
With no hope, despite all of his hard work, of ever aspiring. And also with no bones, so he can't go to the gym.
And he's fat.
I'll finish with like a little quote from Mark Schiller, and it's just talking about the movie. And it said, "It's a comedy which is unfortunate because there was nothing funny that happened to me. These were inept, incompetent people, but they were at the same time malicious and cold-blooded murderers." It's very true. We can make light of how stupid they were, but at the end of the day, they went in knowing that they were going to abduct somebody and extort, and torture somebody. Whether or not they went to the point where they were going to kill them or not, I think they were always going to with Mark Schiller, but, they had no qualms in what they were going to do. They knew what they were doing going in. They were just not good people.
Agreed.
So that is a
Pathological
story.
numbnuts.
Pathological numbnuts. The Sun Gym Gang.
Wow, that is a cracker.
That was a good story. I'd never heard of it. So I love it when we
really?
get something that we've never heard of. So it was good. So, well, let that be a lesson to everyone. When you go to gym and someone says, "Do you want to earn $100,000 in a day?" The
For 2
answer
days.
is no.
Schmitty, you and I
said
jumped
yes.
at that opportunity.
Cautionary tale. We've now
in
learned.
hindsight.
No one
thank you.
ever comes up to anybody that I know, certainly never come up to me and said, "Do you want to earn, $100,000 for a day's work?" Or that never happens. Do you know what I mean?
Stu,
There's a reason for that.
Stu, if we go to the gym and someone does say that, can you remind me of this story? Because I'll probably forget it and go,
Bad
"Sure,
idea.
I'll do it."
He'll probably have to whisper in your ear. Remember
The sun,
Remember the Sun,
Sun
Gym,
Gym
Gang.
gang.
Pathological
That's right.
numbnuts, ringing any bells?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
Excellent.
Swanny. Good
Thank
one.
you for listening.
No worries. So, as we say every week, miss you already.
Ta-ta.
Ciao.
So wrong, suckers!
Miss you more.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.